Standing here in Central Park, watching Jake drop to one knee with a $12,000 diamond ring sparkling in the afternoon sunlight, my heart pounds with emotions I never expected to feel. 1 year ago, in this exact same spot by Bethesda Fountain, he tried to propose to my former best friend Sarah with a beautiful $3,000 ring he had saved for 2 years to buy. Her response was brutal. She looked at that ring and said the words that would change all our lives forever. "Don't even think about proposing. My friends will laugh at whatever cheap ring you can afford." Before I tell you how I went from watching my best friend crush this man's heart to standing here as his fiancée, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you believe in karma. You are going to want to stay for this whole story, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love and friendship. Sarah Martinez and I had been inseparable since our sophomore year at NYU 8 years ago. We bonded over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of conquering Manhattan after graduation. But somewhere along the way, our paths diverged in ways I was only beginning to understand. Sarah landed a prestigious marketing executive position at a luxury brand firm, while I found my calling as an assistant manager at Goldsmith Heritage, a family-owned jewelry store in downtown Brooklyn that had been serving couples for 3 generations. Sarah's apartment on the Upper East Side screamed success with its floor-to-ceiling windows and designer everything. She drove a leased BMW and carried handbags that cost more than my monthly rent. My cozy studio in Park Slope was furnished with thrift store finds and plants I nursed back to health, but it felt like home in ways Sarah's sterile showcase never could. Working at the jewelry store taught me about craftsmanship, about the stories behind each piece, about how love could be expressed in countless ways that had nothing to do with price tags. Sarah's standards seemed to rise with her salary. She would scroll through Instagram during our coffee dates, pointing out her colleagues' engagement rings and ranking them by carat size and designer labels. She talked about relationships like investment portfolios, analyzing potential returns, and calculating social status points. It made me uncomfortable, but I chalked it up to the pressure of her competitive work environment. Jake Thompson entered Sarah's life 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser where he was volunteering as a coordinator. He taught high school history and coached the debate team, earning $38,000 a year and loving every minute of it. His passion for education was infectious. He would light up talking about his students, sharing stories of kids who discovered they were smarter than they ever imagined or who found their voices through academic debate. From the beginning, Sarah complained to me about Jake's modest income. She would roll her eyes when he suggested cooking dinner instead of going to expensive restaurants. She nitpicked his choice to buy used textbooks for his master's degree program and questioned why he did not pursue more lucrative career paths. But Jake never seemed to notice her criticisms, or if he did, he chose love over pride every single time. I watched Jake pour his heart into their relationship. He remembered that Sarah preferred white wine over red, that she felt cold in movie theaters, that she got anxious before big work presentations. He would surprise her with handwritten notes tucked into her purse picnics in Prospect Park, with homemade sandwiches cut into heart shapes and mixtapes of songs that reminded him of her. These gestures seemed to annoy Sarah more than delight her, as if his efforts highlighted what she saw as his limitations rather than demonstrated his devotion. During one particularly uncomfortable dinner at a trendy Soho restaurant, Sarah loudly suggested they split the check when Jake reached for his wallet. The table fell silent as Jake's face flushed red. He quietly agreed and counted out bills while Sarah scrolled through her phone, seemingly oblivious to the humiliation she had just inflicted. I wanted to disappear under the table, but Jake maintained his dignity throughout the meal, even leaving a generous tip for our server. That night marked a turning point in how I viewed my friendship with Sarah. I began noticing patterns that had been invisible to me before. She only called when she needed to vent about work drama or wanted advice about her latest dating dilemmas. Our conversations always centered on her problems, her achievements, her desires. When I tried to share news about my own life, she would listen for approximately 30 seconds before redirecting the topic back to herself. The uncomfortable truth was settling in my chest like a heavy stone. Sarah had become someone I no longer recognized, Or perhaps she had always been this person, and I had been too loyal to see it clearly. My moral compass was spinning wildly between the friendship we had built over 8 years and the growing realization that Sarah's treatment of Jake revealed character flaws I could not ignore. I found myself making excuses to avoid her calls, feeling drained after every interaction, wondering when our friendship had become so one-sided. 2 months before the proposal disaster, Jake appeared at Goldsmith Heritage during a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The bell above the door chimed softly as he entered, his nervous energy filling the small showroom. He approached my counter with the hesitant smile of someone about to make the most important purchase of his life. "I can help you find something special," I offered, though my stomach knotted, knowing who this ring was intended for. Jake had been saving for 2 years, carefully setting aside whatever he could from his teacher's salary. $3,000 represented countless sacrifices. No takeout dinners, no new clothes, no weekend trips with friends. He had researched engagement ring styles and diamond qualities with the same thoroughness he brought to his lesson plans, wanting to make the perfect choice for the woman he loved. Together, we examined vintage-inspired settings and classic solitaires. Jake's face lit up when I showed him a stunning round brilliant diamond set in a delicate platinum band. The ring possessed timeless elegance, the kind of piece that would look beautiful 50 years from now. The diamond was perfectly cut, throwing rainbows across the velvet display case. It was exactly the ring a woman should feel honored to wear. "This is the one," Jake whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "She is going to love it." As I prepared the paperwork, Jake shared his proposal plans. He had chosen Bethesda Fountain in Central Park because that was where he and Sarah had their first official date 3 years ago. He planned to propose at sunset, when the golden light would make the diamond sparkle like fire. He had even arranged for a violinist to play Sarah's favorite song from a distance, creating the perfect romantic atmosphere. Watching Jake's excitement, I felt a growing dread in my chest. I knew Sarah better than he did. I had heard her harsh critiques of engagement rings she deemed inadequate. I had listened to her rank her friends' rings and mock those she considered beneath her standards. Every instinct screamed at me to warn Jake to prepare him for the possibility that Sarah might not react the way he hoped. But how could I shatter his joy with my suspicions? How could I betray my best friend's confidence, even if I disagreed with her values? I chose silence, but it felt like complicity. 3 days after Jake bought the ring, my phone rang at 11:30 p.m. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, and I answered, expecting to hear squeals of joy and engagement excitement. Instead, Sarah's voice was sharp with frustration and anger. "Kristen, you will never believe what just happened. Jake actually thought he could propose to me with some tiny ring he probably found at a pawn shop." My heart sank as Sarah recounted the evening's events. Jake had executed his plan perfectly. The setting was magical, with string lights twinkling in the trees and the fountain creating a romantic backdrop. He had gotten down on one knee just as the sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, opening the ring box with trembling hands and asking Sarah to be his wife. But instead of tears of joy, Sarah felt only embarrassment. She described staring at the ring with horror, calculating its approximate cost, and imagining her friends' reactions. In her mind, accepting that ring would mean accepting a life of financial mediocrity, of making excuses for why her engagement ring was so much smaller than those of her colleagues. "I looked at that pathetic little diamond, and I could not even fake being happy," Sarah continued. "So I told him exactly what I thought. Don't even think about proposing if this is what you can afford. My friends will laugh at whatever cheap ring you think is good enough for me. I have a reputation to maintain, Kristen. People expect better from me." The cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow. I imagined Jake's face in that moment, the way his joy would have crumbled into confusion and then heartbreak. I pictured him slowly standing up, closing the ring box with shaking hands, walking away from the woman he thought he would spend his life with. Jake did not say another word, Sarah reported with stunning casualness. He just put the ring away and left. I think I did him a favor, honestly. Now he knows what level he needs to reach if he wants to be with someone like me. For the first time in our 8-year friendship, I hung up on Sarah without saying goodbye. The aftermath was swift and telling. Within 2 weeks, Sarah was dating Alex Brennan, a successful investment banker with a six-figure salary and a Rolex collection. She paraded him around social media like a trophy, posting photos from expensive restaurants and weekend trips to the Hamptons. Her captions dripped with barely disguised triumph, as if Jake's heartbreak had been a necessary stepping stone to finding her true match. Meanwhile, Jake seemed to disappear entirely from our social circle. Sarah mentioned him once in passing, noting with shocking indifference that he had transferred to a different school district. She spoke about him like a chapter she had closed and forgotten, ready to move on to bigger and better things. I found myself unable to stomach Sarah's callousness. Her phone calls went unanswered. Coffee dates were declined. When she pressed for explanations, I offered weak excuses about work being busy or family obligations. The truth was too complicated to articulate. How could I tell my oldest friend that her behavior had made me question everything I thought I knew about her character? 3 weeks after the proposal disaster, Jake walked back into Goldsmith Heritage. I barely recognized him. The vibrant, hopeful man who had selected an engagement ring with such care had been replaced by someone hollow and defeated. He had lost weight, his clothes hung loose on his frame, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. "I need to sell this back," he said quietly, placing the ring box on my counter without meeting my gaze. "I have student loans to pay, and I need to get whatever money I can recover." Store policy dictated that I offer him 60% of his purchase price, a standard practice that suddenly felt like adding insult to injury. Instead, I heard myself saying, "I cannot buy this ring back from you, but I can hold it here safely until you decide what you want to do with it." Jake looked up in surprise, and for the first time since entering the store, his eyes met mine. "Thank you," he whispered. "I just need some time to figure things out." What started as a transaction became a conversation that lasted 2 hours. Jake shared his confusion and heartbreak with stunning vulnerability. He had truly believed Sarah loved him for who he was, not what he could provide. Her rejection had shattered not just his romantic dreams, but his fundamental understanding of their relationship. "I thought I knew her," he said, staring at his hands. 3 years together, and I never realized that money mattered more to her than anything else. I feel like such a fool." Jake began stopping by the store regularly, ostensibly to browse, but really to talk. Our conversations ranged from his students' latest achievements to his concerns about education funding, from his love of historical documentaries to his volunteer work at a local literacy center. I learned that Jake used his own money to buy school supplies for students whose families could not afford them, that he stayed after school every day to help struggling kids with their homework, that he had never missed a single one of his debate team's competitions, even when he was sick with flu. These were the qualities Sarah had never bothered to appreciate, too focused on what Jake lacked rather than treasuring what he possessed in abundance. His kindness extended to every interaction. He helped elderly customers find meaningful gifts for their grandchildren, patiently explaining different jewelry care techniques. When difficult customers became frustrated or rude, Jake's calm presence somehow diffused tension and restored peace to our small showroom. I found myself looking forward to his visits, admiring his resilience as he slowly rebuilt his confidence and sense of self-worth. He never spoke bitterly about Sarah, never sought revenge, or harbored resentment. Instead, he focused on healing and moving forward, demonstrating a maturity that made Sarah's behavior seem even more petty by comparison. The attraction that bloomed between us felt both inevitable and impossible. Every shared laugh, every moment of understanding, every glimpse of Jake's beautiful soul drew me deeper into feelings I knew I should not have. But how could I pursue happiness built on my best friend's rejection? How could I cross that line without becoming the villain in someone else's story? Our careful dance around growing feelings might have continued indefinitely if Sarah had not decided to pay me an unexpected visit one evening. She arrived just as Jake was leaving the store, and though they did not speak, the recognition in Sarah's eyes was immediate and sharp. "So this is where Jake has been spending his time," Sarah said, her voice dripping with accusation as she entered the store. "How long has this been going on, Kristen?" I tried to downplay our friendship, explaining that Jake was simply a customer who occasionally browsed our collection. But Sarah's intuition cut through my careful words like a knife through paper. She had always possessed an uncanny ability to read people, and she saw the truth written across my face, despite my attempts to hide it. The confrontation that followed revealed the true depths of Sarah's narcissism. She accused me of betraying our friendship, of stealing her leftovers, of being desperate enough to want what she had discarded. Her words were calculated to wound, designed to make me feel small and ashamed for daring to care about someone she had deemed unworthy. "You are pathetic, Kristen. You are so desperate for love that you will take my scraps and pretend they are a feast. Jake is beneath both of us, but at least I had the self-respect to recognize it. You are just settling because you know you cannot do any better." Something crystallized in that moment, a clarity I had been avoiding for months. Sarah's cruelty was not reserved for Jake alone. She viewed everyone in her life as supporting characters in her personal drama, valuable only for what they could provide or how they made her look. Our 8-year friendship had been built on my willingness to play that role, to listen without judgment, to support without question, to remain loyal, even when loyalty meant accepting behavior I found reprehensible. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and saw someone I no longer wanted in my life. "You are right about one thing," I said quietly. "I am taking Jake. But he is not your scraps, Sarah. He is a man who deserves to be loved by someone who sees his worth. Someone who appreciates his kindness, his integrity, his beautiful heart. Someone who understands that a person's value has nothing to do with their bank account." Sarah stormed out, threatening to tell everyone what kind of friend I really was. Her words bounced off me harmlessly because I finally understood that losing her friendship was not a loss at all. It was liberation. When Jake arrived the next morning for what had become our daily coffee ritual, I told him everything. About Sarah's threats, about my own feelings, about the fear that had kept me from being honest. His response was everything I had hoped for, and nothing I had dared to expect. "I have been falling in love with you for weeks," he admitted, his voice soft with wonder. "But I thought you could never care about someone like me after seeing how Sarah reacted." We took our courtship, slowly savoring each discovery about each other's hearts and minds. Jake introduced me to historical walking tours of the city and weekend visits to small museums I had never noticed. I shared my love of vintage jewelry design and taught him about the stories different gemstones were believed to tell. We spent Sunday afternoons in bookstores and Saturday evenings cooking dinner together in my tiny kitchen. Jake's thoughtfulness, which Sarah had dismissed as inadequate, became the foundation of our deepening love. He remembered that I preferred tea over coffee in the afternoon, that rainy days made me contemplative, that I felt most creative when surrounded by beautiful things. He left little notes in my jewelry loop case and brought me flowers from the farmer's market near his school. 1 year later, we returned to Central Park on a crisp October afternoon. Jake had been promoted to department head at his new school, a position that came with both increased responsibilities and a substantial raise. But more importantly, he had healed from Sarah's rejection and discovered that love could be something beautiful rather than conditional. We walked hand in hand toward Bethesda Fountain, the scene of so much heartbreak now transformed into a place of new beginnings. Jake's nervousness was evident, but this time it stemmed from excitement rather than fear. He knew with absolute certainty that I would say yes, just as I knew with matching certainty that I wanted to spend my life with this extraordinary man. When Jake dropped to one knee beside the fountain, the ring he presented took my breath away. The $12,000 custom-designed piece featured my birthstone, surrounded by diamonds, with our initials engraved inside the band. It was stunning, but its true beauty lay in what it represented. Jake had not bought an expensive ring to prove his worth or impress anyone else. He had created something meaningful because I was worth celebrating, because our love deserved to be honored, because he wanted me to smile every time I looked at my hand.